What's up guys, Biker Dave here with the 2013 Ford Focus ST. And we got other videos about this car, so make sure you see the playlist link that's at the end of the video. You see the thumbnail pop up at the end. And if our video helps you or saves your life or helps you solve a problem or not make the same mistake, make sure you click the thanks button. You'll see it underneath the video screen, and send us a donation. Do this for any monetized YouTube channel that helps you out, because doing helpful videos is a great thing, and that's what we try to do. The issue is the center display right here slowly but surely has gone out, and it's not that difficult to replace, so that's what we're going to do. We just need a few tools, and we'll show you how to do it. As you see, the screen has flaked out. It did this over time. It started doing, just kind of little squiggly lines throughout the screen, and but now it is completely dead. So yeah, if yours looks like that, you probably need to replace the little screen right there. And it's not too bad. First thing we'll do is lower the steering wheel, tilt it as far down as you can. Okay, so yeah, your tilt lever is that right there. Pop that down and just lower the entire steering wheel as low as you can get it. That way you can get your hands in there a little bit better, because we've got a few things to remove through here. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do after we've lowered the steering wheel, we're going to remove this it's a little flap right there. If you see it, this right in here, and you just basically pull back on this region and the whole thing comes out, this little piece right here. Okay, so just put your hands through the steering wheel or outside, whichever, and just pull firmly on this region right here. Okay, and just you can just lay it down like this. You don't have to completely remove it, you just want to get it out of the way, because now we have a few fasteners to get to so that we can get to the instrument cluster. And so yeah, not that big a deal. All right, now that we have this little shield taken off here, we got two little Torx fasteners to remove. One right there. It's a T20. And then on the other side, there'll be another one. You see it right there. So make sure you have the Torx style bits. It's kind of a star shape like this. I'll put a link down below where you can get a set like this online, but you can get them at most hardware stores, auto parts stores. You can get a set of these pretty readily. Okay, so we'll take our Torx bit. Move this guy. And if you drop the fastener, it's not that big a deal, because it'll just drop down to the floorboard. But there's one right there. Switch this to the other side. I'll also put a link down below where you can get this screen that we're going to replace. There are plenty of aftermarket screens. You don't have to pay a zillion dollars to get the OEM Ford part. I know some of the imported parts are not always the best in the world, but when you're talking about the cost of one of these and how easy it is to replace, yeah, getting the aftermarket little screen is fine. I would think, because they're not all that expensive. I'll put a link down below where you can get it online. All right, now that we have that out, we'll pull the entire cluster out and move on. Also, make sure that when you're doing the tilt, make sure you pull the wheel as far as you can back to you, as well as push it down. That'll give you more space to work in there. Okay, now to get the cluster out, just make sure all this is out of the way right here, and just pull firmly on it. You have to put your hands underneath, but you don't need any tools necessarily after you've removed these fasteners. Just pull it firmly out. like so. Just get everything out of the way. Okay, and you'll be able to get to the back connector and remove it so you can remove the entire cluster out. Okay, the easiest way to do it is to turn it and tilt it towards you so that you can completely remove the connector. You'll see that right back in there. It's just a lever system. You may have to use a small screwdriver or something, but it's got a lever that you'll release and the connector can come out. Be careful, you don't want to damage this connection right here. Okay, if you see the connector right there, it's got a tab on the top of it. That tab right there, you need to push down on the tab so then you can move the lever and just disconnect it. But you see that little tab right there in the center. You can use like your fingernail if you can, or a real thin flat screwdriver, or just whatever you can just to push on the top. That way you can remove that little buckle. Okay, and once you're able to push that tab down, then the lever can be moved to your left. Move that lever all the way to the left, like so, and then just gently lift it out of there, and now the connector has been removed. Just be careful, don't damage any of this here. So just if it's not coming out, make sure you're doing this correctly. The little tab up on the top, that thing right there is what has to be pushed down to be able to move this lever over. Okay, and once you've removed the connector, just lift the whole cluster out. Be careful, don't break it. There it is, the whole cluster is out. Okay, now that the cluster is out, we need to disassemble it. So these tabs right here, gently use a flat screwdriver and just pry up on all of these guys, here, 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 and the whole fascia will pop off. Okay, so these guys right through here. And be gentle with it. Don't pry up hard on these because you might break the tabs off. So just do it gently. Okay, now you see how it's separating along the top right there. Then just do the same across the bottom right here. Remove those with the same method. Okay, same deal. Now I'll make sure all the clips have been pried and separated, and then just pull the cover off. And there's the screen right there. Maybe a good time to clean this out, maybe some, maybe you can blow it out with some compressed air, or just, gently clean it out with a cloth. Same thing here. You may want to take some compressed air and clean out inside here, especially if your car is older or sits outside a lot. But yeah, there's your screen right there. And then we'll remove that with these two fasteners. Okay, and now these two fasteners are a T10 Torx. Same deal, just gently remove them. Just gently. Remember, all this is plastic, so you don't want to be too strong with adding or removing fasteners on something like this. Okay. Two little screws. Make sure you keep them, keep them where you don't lose them. Gently wiggle it off of there. Okay, now that ribbon cable has to be removed so you can put the new screen on. Okay, so in the back right there, you have to pry that little clamp open, and then the little ribbon will pop out. So just be careful doing all this stuff, especially this car is more than 10 years old, and plastic pieces start to get brittle and start to crack, and it's easy to damage them. So just be real gentle when you're working with all this. Okay, when you're looking at the ribbon cable right there. Get you a really small, thin screwdriver and just pry up on it. You'll see a little lever that's holding the ribbon down. So you just gently pry up on it, and then you can fold it back and do the same thing for the lower part too, you know, facing this way. Just, you know, be very gentle and careful with this. Okay, now the new one you bought may have a slightly different outer casing than the original one. If that's true, like you see these fastening tabs right outside here, if your new one does not have that, like this is the new one, you need to just gently pry off the aluminum case. Notice this all right here. You may have to remove that and replace onto this one, because as it sits right now, this will not fasten into it, because some of these are for the Ford Edge and some other Ford models. So the screen itself is the same, but the little casing might be slightly different. So just, you know, if you see that, no big deal. Just pry off these little tabs here and take this aluminum casing off and swap it over to the new one. Okay, you see, here's the old one. We gently pry up on these areas here. Just come up underneath it with a really slim screwdriver all the way around it. These little tabs, just gently spread them apart. Don't do it too firmly, just be careful with it. And now we're going to swap the entire aluminum case over to the new screen. Okay, and once you've, you know, and you may want to take these apart kind of half at a time. That way you can compare to the original one. That way you don't get lost on how this goes back in. So we put the new screen in the casing so that you have those mounting tabs. It's very easy, you know, just make sure you're just being careful with it. You know, all these tabs need to push in gently, and you'll hear them click into place like that. You know, don't overdo it, because this is aluminum, and if you bend it outward, you know, it could be a little bit of a problem. So just, you know, be kind of careful dealing with the aluminum case. And one other tip, you know, with dealing with the casing right here, you might have to bend it down, you know, like on the edge right there, all the way around. You may have to tweak it down just a tad, because this is forced together. There's no screws holding the case together. Okay, so you may have to just bend it down just a little bit around the edges, all the way around. Then when you push it together, it should hold itself in place. If it's not holding itself together once you put it together, that means these tabs have been kind of tweaked a little bit. So, you know, you may just have to adjust them just a little bit with either a pair of pliers or with your hands or needle nose pliers or something like that. You'll know if it's back together correctly if it kind of clicks in place and it overlaps properly all through here. You know, it shouldn't look wonky when you put it back together. So just make sure everything, like these little buttons right here, make sure that they are fastened in place all the way around. These little guys here. Okay, and when you click it together, make sure that it clicks in place. And then you may want to gently wipe off the screen before you put it back in, because otherwise you might have fingerprints all over it, and then you put it back in and there'll be fingerprints when you drive the car. So you may want to gently wipe this off with just a light damp cloth, soft cloth, something like that. I just use a piece of tissue paper or Kleenex or something and just fog it up. You know, just breathe on the screen with your breath, fog it up a little bit like you would for a pair of glasses, and then just gently wipe it off, and it'll remove any fingerprints if you have them on the screen. Because it does have a little clear sheet that you would like to remove also before you put it in, so make sure to do that as well. And when putting the ribbon back in place, you know, make sure that that little black piece is kind of flipped up, and then you lay the ribbon in, you know, push it pretty deep up in there, and then you'll gently close this little clamp right here. Just gently close it shut. It should click in place. And just make sure that it looks, you know, not all cocked sideways or weird or whatever. And then just lay it back on how it came off, like that. You'll put your fasteners back in there, and we're almost ready to put it back together. Okay, and when you're putting the screen back in, make sure that it sits nice and flat on this little plastic post right here and here. Make sure that it's not kind of cocked up to the side, because it's got to ground itself to the circuit board. See these little brass tabs, copper tabs, whatever they are? They have to actually touch the screen inside here. See those two deep in there? So make sure that it's on there nice and firm before you put the screws back in here and here. See what I mean in there? Those two brass little clips have to touch the case of the screen for this to function properly. Okay, so I noticed on mine I had a little bit of a shard of plastic kind of sticking up right there, and it was preventing me from really setting this down nice and flat right in there. So just make sure that it sits firmly in there when you're about to screw it back in. Okay, and with your T10s, you put them back in the top region right here. And remember, this is plastic, so don't over tighten it. Just make it just firm enough to hold it in place, but you don't want it to be all like crank it down, because you'll probably crack this region in here if you over tighten. Okay, that's that. And when you're about to put the cluster back together, you may want to take a little cloth and fog up these lenses. You got two lenses here and here. You may want to clean them off with a soft cloth, because if this car's, if your car is older like this one, more than 10 years old, this stuff gets, just film and dust specks and whatnot. So you may want to just clean this off real quick before you put the case back together. And with these lenses here, I just breathe on them to fog them up a little bit. Just fog them up, and then use a real gentle cloth, like this is just a Kleenex, and just clean it here and on the back side too. And just don't rub too firmly, just do it gently. I wouldn't use any kind of spray cleaner or anything like that. Just gently wipe it off, and there'll be maybe some dust specks on it. You can get all that off of there before we put it back together, and it'll look better when you have it reassembled. Okay, and when you're putting the case back together, make sure that it clips into place all through here. Make sure that it clips cleanly, and then underneath here, just make sure that it looks nice and flat and straight, and then just push it together like that. All the way around. Okay, make sure that it looks nice and flat and not cocked sideways or anything. Just make sure it looks good and normal. And now we're about to reconnect the dash connector right in there, which will go right back in here, and we're almost finished. Okay, and then you'll lay the cluster back in, kind of face down, in order to put the connector back in place. See if we can get a good view of it right in there. And just gently but firmly make sure it's nice and flat. I'm gonna have to do this with both hands, but make sure that this goes in nice and flat with the little lever pushed down like this before you completely reconnect everything. But make sure that it goes in nice and flat. Don't try to force it in, just go carefully with it. Okay, and you'll know it's in when it's trying to, it almost pulls itself in. Then push down all the way, set the clip all the way to the back. Notice it tries to force itself down in there. It'll click in place, and you're in. Now it's time to reconnect or refasten the cluster, and it's almost over. Okay, and if you did this correctly, it should immediately come on. After you connect it, the screen should come on with its little blue background, and you've done it right if it's coming back on immediately. Now, some people do disconnect the main battery of the car to do this. I guess that's probably the best way to do it, but I didn't bother with that. But if you want to, go ahead and disconnect the battery of the car. I should have said that from the beginning, but that's up to you if you want to do that. And we'll put our screws back in. There'll be one right there and one right down there. Just gently put them in. Don't destroy the thing. Just put them in firmly. It'll hold itself still, but don't overdo it. Okay, and once you've got your little T20s back installed right there and there, it's time to just put the little shield back in place. You just basically make sure that it looks nice and flat through here. You may want to wipe this off with a cloth or something if yours is dirty. And you just gently, notice where the tabs insert. You got one right there, another one there, another one there. Just gently set it in place. It'll fit right into those little slots. Let me get a closer view. See the little slot right there. Make sure that it fits nice and square into the slots. and then just firmly push it in place. And then reposition your steering wheel where you wanted it, you know, so get your lever down here and reposition everything. You should be ready to rock and roll. Now the moment of truth, we will start the car and hope for good things. There it comes. Yay! There you have it. Pretty awesome, right? Not that big a job, not that hard at all, you know, not difficult of a job. There you go. Anyway, we got tons of videos about this really killer little car. This is a great little car. This is a girl's car, believe it or not, a ST. She loves the stick shift. We've done quite a few little projects to this thing. Good driving car, gets almost 30 miles per gallon, as well as being fun to drive, you know, with your turbo 2-liter. Yeah. So yeah, check it out. We did tail lights, headlights, the ST logo in the front. Yeah, you'll see a thumbnail pop up at the end of this video that'll tell you more of stuff we've done to this car. Really fun car to drive. And look at that, she has 200,000 miles on it. Yeah, we've had to do a few repairs along the way, but you know, what car doesn't need repairs at 200,000 miles? But yeah, she loves it and drives the crap out of it. So yeah, if our video helped you out, make sure you click the thanks button. You'll see it underneath the video screen. Feel free to send a donation. We really appreciate it. And that's it. Y'all have a great day.